Ryan Martin has a problem. He was referred to being unstoppable. But what if we told you that sadness littered the path behind the shine of success? Ryan Martin's story isn't just about speed. It's about survival. How did the racer everyone believed to be untouchable, the golden kid of Street Outlaws, deal with this devastating catastrophe? Before the world knew him as the fire-wielding superstar on Street Outlaws, Ryan Martin was just a young man from Oklahoma who couldn't sit still unless he was behind the wheel. And the desire to race and dare the wind, turned into passion. One of his earlier automobiles was a tiny '89 Mustang GT, just loud enough to wake the neighbors, and fast enough to give him the excitement of attaining dangerous speeds. Ryan wasn't racing for fame back then. He was doing it for the feeling of thrill and his passion for it. Each time Ryan raced on the street, he carved out his name. And his name didn't only resound in local garages. It screamed over state boundaries. However, Ryan wasn't just a racer. He loved to work on vehicles and built up a garage where he tuned up autos. Eventually, he paired up with a friend and they opened B&R Performance. Then Street Outlaws came knocking. Ryan initially had no intention of racing because he was a co-owner of B&R Performance and spent his time assisting drivers like Jackie Knox, Freaking Rican, and others as they ascended the rankings. Then Ryan decided he was ready to take to the streets himself in his incredibly fast Fireball Camaro because he couldn't resist the rush of speed. This automobile is a beast of a machine that didn't simply burn rubber, it torched expectations. Ryan made it appear simple with the Camaro. He earned win after triumph, but none got to his head. Ryan's record spoke more than any harsh talk could, and he was always cool under pressure. For him, it wasn't just racing, it was moving quickly to survive. And just then, at the top, something happened, and Ryan was left behind to pick up the pieces. Sometimes you don't see coming. Others you feel before they happen, like a shift in the air, a weight in your gut. Ryan suspected something would happen, but he ignored it. Ryan, cool as ever, rolled the Fireball out at Perth Motorlex in March 2021. Prepping for the Street Outlaws Australia tour, the crowd was buzzing. The cameras were in motion, and beneath the hood of that black and crimson monster, 2,500 horses waited to be released. It was the third test pass of the day, nothing strange, and then it occurred. Ryan crossed the finish line clean, but something was off. The car didn't slow down as predicted. Fireballs broke free and crashed heavily into the retaining wall, whether it was due to a slick patch, a braking problem, or just one of those strange things that happen during races. The kind of hit that reverberate in your chest long after the smoke clears. The front end folded, fiberglass shredded, carbon fiber shattered like eggshells. The Fireball, a vehicle that had come to represent Ryan's strength, accuracy, and legacy, was left shattered and bruised. Fortunately, he stepped out on his own. He didn't require a stretcher or an ambulance. However, walking away from the crash didn't mean that he wasn't harmed. He was harmed in places people wouldn't see. The accident of the Fireball Camaro was the kind of moment that stopped time. It was supposed to be merely another test run. Ryan silently stared at the wreck for long hours, feeling a tremendous burden. This time, it wasn't about impressing the audience, but about letting down fans who journeyed halfway across the globe to witness him burn up the track. People who were close to him noted that Ryan, who had never doubted himself, sensed trepidation. He wasn't the invisible man he had assumed, and there was a break in his mentality. Sadly, this was just the start. Crashing is a part of the work for a racer. However, witnessing your car break seems like losing a piece of who you are when it serves as your identity, weapon, partner, and heritage. And yet, Ryan never pointed fingers. He didn't rant or withdraw. He just stood beside the wreck, eyes keen, jaw clenched, already planning the rebuild, because that's who he is. So, what was next for Ryan Martin? So, how did No Prep King's back-to-back winner, Ryan Martin, the calm on the list, make things better? How did he ascend from staring down the rubble of everything he built? How did he deal with the heartbreak? Did Ryan let it take over him, or did he challenge it? Some crashes come with a bang, others with a silence that haunts you long after the flames go out. Ryan did not back down following the crash in Perth. Determined and tenacious, he and his team chose to stay in Australia rather than take a journey home. They were hundreds of miles from their headquarters, without ready parts or familiar faces. Most would have called it quits, but Ryan, not a chance. With torque wrenches and tweezers in hand, they crawled over that broken Camaro at night under glaring garage lights. They examined every nearby fabricator in Sydney and Melbourne, chased down carbon fiber clips like gold, and rescued everything they could. As Drags highlighted, they were weeks away from getting to the parts they required, while needing a functional automobile in a matter of days. Ryan wondered what to do next. It was the worst time to smash his car, but he wasn't discouraged, because this was an obstacle that he needed to conquer. Every bolt, every weld, it seemed personal. Pride, identity, legacy, all at stake. Rebuilding the Fireball Camaro was more than rebuilding a race vehicle. It was salvaging a bit of himself from ruin. He and his group traded with local gearheads, hunted through back-alley workshops, and made do with whatever they could find. There were no overnight miracles or quick fixes, just greasy hands, evenings spent beneath flickering shop lights, and a Camaro that looked more like a ghost than a blaze. Here's what most folks overlooked, though. Ryan wasn't merely rebuilding. He was fighting himself and the world. He felt as though he was sending a message to the entire globe with each bolt he tightened. He used it as a means of expressing to the public that nothing could ever steal his spirit, even if it could take his car. But still, behind the grime, something had moved. A stillness had crept into the picture, not just from the broken car, but from Ryan himself. His usually calm manner now held an undertone, a man who'd stood too close to the brink and came back a little more haunted. Because even as Fireball slowly came back to life, rebuilt, reforged, the world around him was shaking in ways no wrench could mend. But what do you do when the fire isn't beneath the hood, it's in your head? Just like flames engulfed the Fireball during Ryan's crash, there was a fire Ryan sensed burning inside long before the wrecks. By mid-2022, Ryan Martin wasn't simply recuperating from collisions and reconstructing flames from ash and carbon. He was facing a much more intimate reality that could not be adjusted for improved performance or welded back into place. Ryan did something unusual in June 2022. He opened up on something few saw coming. Bipolar II illness, a mood disease that alternates between electric highs and devastating lows, was the diagnosis made for him. It wasn't a press release or a sympathy show. It was raw, bold, and honest. He was out on a mood disorder medication plan. But one thing was certain. This was going to be his greatest repair yet. Unfortunately, the voyage was exhausting, emotional, demanding, and for Ryan, who kept to himself, it was lonely. This was the kind of problem that doesn't make its presence known with screeching tires. However, it turns even the most compelling inquiry into their next move. And for Ryan, a man who had made a career out of timing, control, and reading the track, it felt like the worst turn of events to lose control over his own thoughts. He didn't talk about it much because it was not Ryan's style. But in a few open exchanges between shop work and race reports, he acknowledged his memory loss, numbing side effects, and lack of self-awareness. Some medications made him sluggish, some made him forgetful, and some made him feel nothing at all. However, he stayed on his drive to race, since he recognized that unlike a damaged axle or a blown motor, this wasn't something he could quickly switch out at the shop. This was about learning to live with it, to own it, not flee from it. Ryan encountered a strange type of silence at night, long after the track lights went out. The kind that doesn't hum with horsepower or adrenaline. The kind where your thoughts keep going back to themselves, wondering about anything from your identity to whether you're even prepared for the next daybreak. But he kept going. Through every mood swing, every restless night, every unexpected low, he kept rebuilding. He was reconstructing himself as well as the fireball. He understood that his real power didn't stem from how fast he sped, but in his ability to rebuild and be better, for himself and every fan who needed to realize that even the quickest men occasionally need to slow down to recover. Ryan persevered silently and furiously in the face of obstacles. You'd think the fire would be over by now. That Ryan Martin could at last be able to breathe after everything. After rebuilding his car in a distant nation, and after discovering the language to describe his worst feelings. But 2022 had one more terrible hand to play, and it didn't wait for permission. It happened at a No Prep Kings event in September. The day had begun as usual. Fans packed the grandstand, engines boomed like distant thunder, and the Fireball Camaro waited anxiously at the line, its roar hardly restrained beneath the hood. But no one, not Ryan, nor his team, not the crowd, could have imagined what was coming. Mike Murillo, a buddy and a fellow racer, was chasing Ryan down the track in his Mustang. The race was clean, and you could taste the adrenaline. Then something went wrong. Mike's automobile exploded during the race. At one point, he was pushing his engine to its limit, and at another, there was a real chance that he would burn. From his driver's seat, Ryan observed everything, wondering if his friend would become lost in the flames. The race was irrelevant for an eternity. He only wanted his pal to be fine. The wind didn't matter, and Ryan himself felt terror. He remembered his own experience and pondered if it could have been him struggling with fire. Beneath the fireproof armor, his breath was shallow as he sat motionless, 1,000 ideas slamming on the inside of his skull. This wasn't just another wreck. This was not like anything else. Something basic. A reminder that no matter how sharp your reflexes, how tight your bolts, or how loud your fans applaud accidents, don't ask for permission. It just shows up. Mike made it out alive. Coughing, scared, and covered in smoke and soot, he miraculously managed to claw his way out. He would later talk about his near-death experience, since it actually happened. Ryan didn't speak much afterward. He didn't grant interviews or put anything online. He didn't even say anything to his crew. However, many who knew him could sense that something had changed. Ryan stayed by himself that evening after the crowd had left and the track lights had gone down. Long after the last tire had cooled and the cameras switched off, he still couldn't shake the occurrence. But tragically, this was just the beginning, and what happened next absolutely shattered him. But before then came another race. In this race, everything appeared normal as well. The weather was beautiful and the strip was throbbing with energy. Ryan was composed as usual, but he was fighting a war inside of him, which burst when one of the cars further down the event caught fire seconds after launch. The crowd gasped, track workers rushed, and Ryan stood frozen, watching, heart beating beneath the fireproof suit, because it could have been him. He had come dangerously close to being the next victim on multiple occasions. Just as it thought everything might settle, another crash arrived. This one far too close. On August 7, 2022, Ryan Fellows, a popular character on Street Outlaws Fastest in America, died in a catastrophic collision close to Las Vegas. Before anyone could get to him, his gold Nissan 240Z flipped, caught fire, and he burned alive. It sent a shockwave through the community, not just because he was a colleague, but because he was family. The show halted, crews went off the set, and spectators sat dumbfounded, bearing witness to a loss that felt weirdly personal. He and Ryan Fellows shared more than a name. They shared the same blood-hot universe. Rough edges, loud masses, evenings lighted by headlights and hubris. They arrived from the same asphalt pits, driving their machines into unfathomable speeds. One of them was gone now, his life extinguished out amid the same swirl of smoke. This was something that Ryan went through yet lived to race another day. Fans online were panicked, different social media hot queries. They didn't know who died. They heard Ryan and thought it was Ryan Martin. Ryan was negatively impacted by the panic that doubled on the internet. Were anyone anticipating his death at any point? This made his medical condition worse, and Ryan saw a strange kind of reality. He was also enraged, obsessed by the emotional cost of the tragedy itself and being misunderstood to have died. He observed his pal's grief. he watched Ryan Fellow's wife Liz and teenage son Josiah upset and said he lost control, went into the desert, flipped, and caught fire. He heard the Street Outlaws statement. The family is heartbroken, heartfelt sympathies. Still, he stayed on the track. He maintained his position and resumed his race. Because in that stillness, when his comrades buried a brother, Ryan Martin realized that survival isn't celebration. It's a burden. A name that is mistaken for another doesn't simply disappear. It becomes a ghost that haunts every turn, every beam of the Camaro's headlights. Every red glow of the finish line sent shadows of disaster down the road. And while he drove again, something changed. Some element of that quiet killer was altered, smoothed by pain, scarred by memory, made frail by remorse. Every race was now more than just a speed test. It was an homage to the fallen, a silent question. How many more names will we whisper amid the smoke? Ryan refused to be paralyzed by dread, and in 2023, he and his crew provided a defiant reminder. He guided his team to win the No Prep Kings Team Championship at the Texas Motolex in an intense, surprising match. It was more than a simple victory. It was a roar from the shadows, a resurrection. Then, in early 2025, when the air was filled with conjecture about the show's survival, Ryan strode onto a smaller stage, but with no less intensity. A cold March night, a regional meet, a gathering of diehards and skeptics. And there he was again, taking on Kai Kelly in a little tire diamond that reminded everyone the fire hadn't gone out. He dominated, not merely raced. There was no television coverage of that victory. There were no slow-motion replays or confessionals cut between segments. Just asphalt, adrenaline, and a man refusing to be forgotten. Perhaps that's the point. Because for Ryan Martin, this was never about fame or fanfare. It was, and always has been, about speed and hearing the engine roar. There is no set date for when Street Outlaws will resume regular programming, so even if the show is currently silent due to Discovery's pause, Ryan isn't waiting for it to resume. But that doesn't imply the story is over. Nor for Ryan, nor for the street. Instead, a new chapter is being written. Not under studio lights, but beneath outdoor skies, in local tracks and live streaming. Perhaps this is where Ryan should be right now. Because it doesn't really matter how loud everything is around you. The question is whether your heart continues to beat for the things you cherish. Additionally, Ryan Martin is passionate about racing. And he is still racing and writing his story 1 mile at a time. The cameras might have focused elsewhere. And the distant roar of the audience. But a racer never loses heart. It doesn't just disappear. It grows, adapts, and remains hungry. For Ryan Martin, the trip didn't finish when the credits rolled on Street Outlaws. If anything, that was only a chapter. Ryan wasn't acting in front of the cameras. He raced because he enjoyed it and would always continue to do so. He has achieved a lot as a street racer and has proved how terrifying and powerful he is behind the wheels. What next would come from him?